New York. To win acclaim in this fiercely competitive city is the seal of approval for most musicians, but few make it. One who has been accepted into the charmed circle at the top is the Canadian pianist Glenn Gould. When Gould is preparing for a recording session or concert in New York, he heads first for Steinway's on 57th Street. Down in the basement, a whole troupe of famous concert grands are kept ready for the great pianists of our time.
Well, that's all right, Morris. No, that's what he's here for. That's what he's here for.
Here, Gould hopes to find an instrument that will have exactly the tone and action he wants.
It's got a tremolo. Watch it. You'll fix it. Don't worry.
Let us push on.
Want that stool?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Mr. Gould, Mr. Gould. It's good. Please go just the same, the guy, you know?
Well, everybody has to have his own.
No.
You like Mozart or the piano? What?
Both.
Well,
Too
which
heavy.
is the one? Let's try this again.
No, I think this is it. Really.
Gould was born with a rare sensitivity to sound, and already at the age of 3 it was discovered that he had absolute pitch. When such gifts are matched with musical intelligence and a fortunate physical endowment, and capped with many years of hard labor, there may emerge a musician of some stature. And such rare persons enter a very special world, with its own peculiar problems, difficulties, rewards, and professional preoccupations.
What you really need is me out at Flushing as an idea man. I mean, after all, the piano went out of fashion as a family convenience at the turn of the century. What you've got to think of now is a mid-20th century piano, something with all these extras that you've just described.
Garbage disposal.
Well, actually, what I would like is a piano with a small, say, 25 horsepower engine underneath it that it could move itself about, you know.
Well, that's an excellent idea. We just say, go to Carnegie Hall.
Right.
We'll eliminate all this trucking monkey business.
Open the door.
Cut cottage costs down to at least $5 a throw.
Tell me something. You have upstairs the old Hoffman chair, which I've seen.
It's out in the factory now.
Well,
yeah.
whatever it is, which looks completely formidable to me. I don't know how anybody could sit on it. But apart from Hoffman and me,
Yes.
who else has had a special chair? Anybody?
Paderewski.
Paderewski?
Has had one.
Adjustable or just...
No, it was a special chair. It had a leather seat and it had a high back, a support. And as a matter of fact, it has fringe with little balls and little tassels around it.
Huh.
And both the Paderewski chair and the Hoffman chair are out in the factory and are
Then you had
testing
the Hess
of where
one.
And how much am I bid for this?
Well, Glenn, I'll tell you, I think seriously that this chair should be willed to Steinway and Sons.
I tell you, this would be a
Don't speak
Morris
of wills.
chair.
That is point made.
Well, I didn't mean that. I meant that you should will it to us, not in your will and your last will and testament, but we'd be delighted to have it in our magnificent
This is going to be in the Morris
memorabilia.
This is going to be in the Morris Snapper collection of Steinwayana.
Memorabilia of the greats.
This would be a Morris
The
chair.
seats of the immortals.
This is a Morris chair?
We can do that. That would be marvelous. We'd get them all lined up and take a beautiful photograph sometime, and then we will have it entitled "The Seats of the Immortals."
Yes.
Glenn Gould, Joseph Hoffman, Ignaz Paderewski. I think that's terrific.
When Gould is not on tour or recording, he spends most of his time at his retreat, a cottage on the shore of Lake Simcoe, 90 miles north of Toronto. Here he works on the piano he favors above all others for practicing. A 70-year-old Chickering with a resonant, harpsichord-like quality, recalling the instruments of the time of Bach. In one respect, Gould's life is very simple. He lives alone for the most part, with his dog Banquo, in the country place where he spent all his holidays as a child. Mrs. Doolittle, the neighbor, cleans up and cooks for him sometimes. The Doolittles remember him as a rather solitary little boy, with strong opinions and a hatred of cruelty, who was happiest in the hours when he was free to practice the piano. Gould needs the undistracting tempo of rural life to concentrate completely on his one love. It is a single-minded absorption, so great that the local storekeeper likes to tell of finding crumpled banknotes dropped absent-mindedly and frozen in the snow. Automatically, he put them aside for Glenn. For dinner, Gould usually drives into Aurelia, 5 miles away. The cafe proprietor, Gincito, is so proud of him that his Wurlitzer often plays Gould recordings of Bach and Koenig at full volume, to the astonishment of the tourists. Gould is not well known locally, and most people are unaware that a young man living down the road draws rave notices when he plays in San Francisco or London. Gould's life seems ideal. Peace, calm, time to study in idyllic surroundings. But his world is also an unnerving one. It takes courage of a high order to play Beethoven before the supercritical audience of Berlin, or to present oneself on the same platform as the great Russian pianists of today.
How do you feel about playing on the concert platform and playing in the recording studio?
I much prefer the recording, and I gather that this is not the standard reaction, because most people find the recording is very trying. They feel uneasy in the presence of something that is going to be permanent, and the microphone conveys this to them. But I feel quite the opposite. The microphone is a great friend because I was brought up with it. When I was in my teens and still at school, I didn't do any traveling at all. The only city in which I really played was Toronto, and perhaps once or twice a year there. And so that if I did any performing at all, it had to be on the radio, or from 1952 on television, when we had it in Canada. And I became so used to these media, to being alone in the studio, that nothing else mattered. In fact, I've often wondered if the justifiable complaints that I sometimes hear about my platform manner isn't a result of the fact that for many years, formative years, I could be completely uninhibited, and it didn't matter what I did, as long as the music got across. This was the only thing that counted for me, because I had no yardstick of measuring. I seldom went to concerts even then. I never do now, and I had no yardstick really of measuring what other people did. And what I did at that time was done in order to make myself at ease and to get something out of myself which otherwise might have remained in and had to come out on the microphone to get across. And I've often wondered if this didn't go back to those days.
Why don't you like going to concerts?
Well, first of all, I think I'm at all times slightly uncomfortable in great crowds of people. I always have been. Tend to become slightly claustrophobic in a large hall. I don't feel at all that way on the stage because there's plenty of room to breathe, but I tend to be that way when I participate in an audience. Less so in a cinema, because there everything is in the dark, and it's a sort of secretive feeling. The relationship of one person to another in a spectacle doesn't really exist. You are all sort of pretending that you're by yourself. I always have this feeling in a cinema, so I enjoy going to movies. I also enjoy going to the theater for much the same reasons. But to concerts, for the dual reason that the hall is generally brighter, and also for the much more important reason that I know too much about what goes on in a person's mind who is actually having to do this. And I feel exceedingly nervous at somebody else's concert. Much more nervous than I've ever been at any of my own. It can be the most capable person in the world, and I'm still almost panic-stricken.
How do you like all this traveling you have to do?
When I'm up here and sitting in the country for anything over 10 days or 2 weeks and dealing with people whose relationship to their work is a somewhat more indifferent one in one case, and on the other hand, more regular one in the other, that they know from 1 week to the next what they will be doing, where they will be. It will be the same place. It will be a schedule which is almost unvariable. When I'm with people like this, I find myself envying them very much. And in fact, at such times, I wonder how it is possible that the following week I will be back into a schedule which seems at that moment almost intolerable to me. I wonder how I do it. When you get to that point, when you leave here, I can only say that I feel something like I did as a child when it was Labor Day and the next day meant going back to school. It was a completely horrible feeling. It was a feeling of being trapped as much as one would be if one were suddenly consigned to the netherworld, you know, irrevocably. It was a dreadful feeling. For many years I had a recurring dream, which I think has stopped now, but it came during my school years and shortly after. And this dream always involved variations on the same theme, which was a return to school. And school in this case obviously meant much more than that. It meant a return to a schedule which I couldn't completely control.